I love the challenge of entrepreneurship, just the everyday solving new problems and doing that. So I wish I could say that, yeah, I had a...
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset, everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer. Be sure to head over to clicksandbricksacademy.com so you can access all the resources to start improving your sales today.
Welcome back, everybody, to today's episode of Clicks and Bricks. My name is Ken. Today's episode, we have Clayton with us. He's the CEO and founder of CrossFit 43 North, right outside Boise, Idaho. Super excited to bring him on. But before we get started in today's episode, if you'd like to join my text line community, it's 314-370-2871. I'll never try to sell you anything on that line, just tips, tricks about business and technology. You can ask me any question, and I will give you an unbiased answer, no charge at all. How are you doing today, Clayton?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining our show. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do at CrossFit 43 North?
Yeah, so I am married. I have two small children, both under the age of 7. Been living here in Nampa, Idaho for my entire life. And we opened CrossFit 43 North to really make CrossFit accessible to everyday people. We opened a little over 7 years ago. And at that point in time, we were still kind of at the top of the bell curve of early adopters. So there were a lot of, CrossFit was kind of for crazy people at that point. And it was starting to come down to the other side. And we're seeing just average everyday people getting interested and trying to do it, but they didn't have the background in athletics that would maybe lend to some of the higher intensity workouts that we were doing. We were seeing a lot of people just doing more than they were ready for, and some people even leading to some injury. So my wife and I were working out with a group of people doing that. And we're like, we really feel like there is a space for a gym that offers the same kind of training, the same high intensity, but with much more hands-on instruction, much more attention to detail, and helping people kind of train with these methodologies for long-term health and fitness rather than just to come in and work really, really hard and leave as a puddle of ooze.
Fantastic. Yeah. I'm really familiar with boxing gyms because I own a boxing gym.
Yeah.
And it's intimidating for boxing gyms, but I actually think that a lot of CrossFit gyms are more intimidating than walking into a boxing gym, right? They've got the wraps on, the chalk, they're lifting really, really heavy stuff, and it looks like they're constantly pushing their bodies past where they should be going, right? The knees bending the wrong way and that kind of stuff is always scary to me. So
yeah, and that's like for sure the preconception, that like the notion that most people have, and the reality is that that's what you see on YouTube because people are posting the crazy stuff. No one posted it like my 80-year-old neighbor who's like an 80-pound deadlift, which is awesome. She's 80 years old and could deadlift 80 pounds. That's cool.
There you go. Fantastic. So you go into this industry and you're going to change the game, how it is. You're going to make CrossFit inclusive to anybody, right? So you have some obvious hurdles right out of the gate on how you're going to communicate CrossFit to your new community. Can you tell the audience a little bit about, what were some of the techniques and strategies that you use on changing the perception of what CrossFit is on new memberships?
Yeah. So we talk a lot about low trajectory to a distant horizon. We talk about training for life. We talk about being adventure ready. We just want people to kind of think about training as the thing that they do to make them better for the rest of their life, and not have the exercise component be the end game, the end point. And so we still use the term CrossFit because we do CrossFit methods, and it helps for SEO and getting people in the door. But then at that point, we talk about it a lot differently. We talk about modulating intensity. So not every day do you come in and drink from a fire hose. Like if you haven't slept well, we want you to work out with less intensity. And like we check in with our people every day. Like, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on in your life? How do we need to modify today's workout so that it's appropriate for where you're at? And so people get that from the get-go. So that's a lot of what we do, is just try to reframe that conversation as soon as we can.
Fantastic. So what you've been successful at doing is changing that narrative once they walk in the door, using CrossFit as a way to gain attention, driving people into the door, and then you're using the sales mechanism of inclusion at the door to convert that member over, right? So you might get somebody that says, hey, I want to change my life. CrossFit's the way to do it. But I'm a 350-pound guy that has zero cardio, and I'm walking in the door. If you push that person right into your traditional CrossFit workout, he's going to quit after a day, right? He's going to be sore. He doesn't have the right amino acids, all those things. He's probably not going to come back, right? Yeah. So that's a great way to keep your retention in line for a very, very long time. I also like your, low trajectory, long-term goals, because that means just steady growth, right? That's what you're teaching, that steady growth, not this, hey, you're not going to lift, 1,000 pounds today and have big ripped muscles tomorrow. Yeah. Right. So you're setting that expectation of this is a steady growth. You're not going to change overnight.
Yeah. I've been writing blog posts since we opened almost weekly. Been a little busy lately, so it's been a little less than weekly. But so I've got like 7 years of content that I've been basically pushing out around that same idea of really trying to present CrossFit in like what the benefits are and what it is in reality, as opposed to what people might see on YouTube or even on TV with the CrossFit Games, which is super impressive, but that's not most people. And so we actually get a lot of people coming in that don't really know what CrossFit is, just because they've, either through Facebook ads or whatever, have gotten on our mailing list. And so they just receive content from me all the time, just kind of gradually educating them on what truly it is that we do. And so then when they come in the door, we start everyone with personal training as well. So we have a growing but a decent sized personal training business, as opposed with the group classes that we do. And so, but we start everyone with personal training so that we can give them the confidence, give them the instruction that they need, and so that they can progress at a rate that really makes sense for them, and they're not just thrown into a group class expected or feeling like they're expected to perform a certain level. So,
right. And then the 43 North, where does that come from? Is that the street that you guys are on, or the neighborhood, the block?
The nearest parallel to the town that we're in is the 43rd North parallel. So
okay, so that's a popular thing in that area.
No, not really. Okay, it's just so within CrossFit, because of the the affiliation model that it is, they are very protective of the names that you can use. And so there are no, when people early days, you could have we're in Nampa, you could have CrossFit Nampa. They don't let you do that anymore because that's kind of unfair for search engine stuff. So they don't allow you to do that. They also don't want you to have a name that's similar to somebody else because we're all independent. They don't want you to feel like so we had a name that we really loved, and then we presented that name to them, and they're like, CrossFit's like, no, it's very similar to this other gym that's in the next state over. So we just kind of pulled this other name out of our hat, CrossFit 43 North. But the Idaho is the 43rd state, and then the parallel that comes right through here is 43, and we're like, it has something to do with the location, and it's not ideal, but it works for us.
Right. So do you? I think that's a great merchandising opportunity, though, to tell that story. So anytime that you can tell a story while you're selling your merchandise on your name, it's going to help you sell that product, right? So you didn't just grab a name out of the blue. You took a couple of different things from that area, pulled them together, and then branded those. So now you're CrossFit 43 North. Would you mind telling us, what percentage of merchandise do you guys sell out of your shop versus memberships and PT? I don't want your PT numbers or anything like that, but just it's pretty typical, I think, for the average gym or retail store that has an experience that 10 to 20% of their revenue is based on merchandise. Is that all true for you guys at 43 North, or is that a different experience for you?
I think it could. Merchandise is not a thing that we do a lot of. Okay. And we could definitely do more. It's a thing that I go back and forth in my head about, just because I don't want I don't want people to just spend. I care about people, and I care about their budgets maybe more than they do sometimes.
Right.
And so I want to just like, hey, here's this week's sweatshirt and this week's shirt, like T-shirt or hoodie, right, or all these different things. And so we carry just some basics in there, just in the way of apparel, and then be that. We've tried different supplements and stuff a little bit in the past, but like I would rather
don't sell well in a gym.
Yeah,
like they just don't, right? And I don't know why. I would encourage you to do a shirt of the month and pre-order, right? One great thing that gyms can do is they have a captive audience that is a fan of their gym, right? And they're a fan of that location specifically. People are very territorial about their gym. So unlike most retail shops where you have to make all the investment up front, you can get a really cool design and say, hey guys, next month we're going to be releasing this shirt. Put your pre-orders in now and we'll get them to you next month. And you get the economies of scale of purchasing in bulk right out of the gate. And you don't have to take the risk of carrying a whole bunch of random sizes for a bunch of different people. I think the other really cool thing about a gym that you have for merchandise is you've got a pretty reasonable idea of people's sizes, right? You know how many big people you have, you know how many thin people, like when I buy shirts for our gym, I know how many smalls are going to sell the first day, right? I know how many 2XLs are going to sell, because I'm going to take 2XLs right off the shelf for myself on day one. So there's things that you can do different when you have a captive audience than whenever you're just selling retail off the shelf, right? It's a different. You can do it differently, and I would encourage gym owners to do that because it is a revenue opportunity. And although you have your client's checkbook at heart, they want to promote you, right? They want to promote your gym. They want to tell people where they're going. It's their third home, right? It's important to them, and they want to wear that stuff. So awesome! Glad that you have this merchandise and stuff like that. It is important to have. Anytime you have a brand, you got to have some kind of merch to go with it, right?
I think we could do more. We have done pre-orders in the past, but I think we do about 5%.
5%. Okay. So
we pushed it. I think we could probably do closer to 20, but it's not a thing I put a lot of effort into. But.
Well, and I guess for me, in my head, what ancillary merchandise products do you have in CrossFit? Is there, there's hand wraps and chalks and stuff I would assume that you could sell, but there's not a whole lot of extra equipment that's easy to have an inventory for CrossFit people, right?
Yeah.
That I can think of. Like boxing, we got gloves and wraps and other tools. So it is a bit more challenging, I would imagine. Yoga is probably worse, right? They got a mat and some blocks.
Yeah.
So.
And for the most part, we provide everything for our members so they don't need extra equipment. I mean, most people
like it's the T-shirts and the ball caps.
The biggest thing that they usually buy and people get kind of nerd out on is what shoes that they should get. But
yeah, and then carrying shoes is a nightmare.
Oh yeah,
you just can't. It's way too expensive to carry a line of shoes. You become a shoe store really fast. I don't recommend business owners going into the shoe unless you're a shoe guy or a girl. Then you can, but it is tedious to manage the shoes and the inventory and the shelving and the stock and the space that they take. They take a lot of space too. Or T-shirts don't take that much space. Fantastic. So what did you do before you started CrossFit 43 North?
So my background is in graphic design and branding. So I have a master's in strategic design. And so I started a couple companies trying to do that on my own and knew nothing about business. So those failed miserably, but learned a lot through that. And I ended up just kind of working for other people doing graphic design. So I worked for a few nonprofits here in the area doing graphic design.
Historically, graphic design's been a tough gig, right? Because everybody wants great work, but they don't value the labor very much. It's a weird thing. It's just like they don't value the art as much as they they should, in my opinion.
I mean, from a business owner's perspective, like I look at, okay, this is what my logo is a thing that like becomes a recognizable thing, and over time it gains a lot of value. That value is maybe if someone came up with the idea for my logo in 20 minutes, does that make the logo any less valuable? No. So but then as a designer, how do you charge for that value? Because it's tough.
So there's an old story about an old boat mechanic, right? And the Navy's got this giant boat, and they're working on it. They can't fix it. It's a really old boat, and they call this old guy, and he comes up and he looks at it for about 10 minutes, runs the boat, and he goes and gets his hammer, and he hits it. He goes, that'll be $10,000. Like, it took you 10 minutes. He's like, okay, then it's $1 for the hammer hit, $9,999 for knowing where to hit the boat to make it work, right? So, they don't buy. There's a lot of education, especially in digital art, right? Digital art isn't like a traditional art form. There's a lot of technical expertise you have to learn. You got to learn the softwares. You got to learn how to manage the computer. Like, there's a lot of extra stuff that takes potentially more time to do digital art than it does traditional artists. I mean, I'm not an artist, so I don't want to take any credit away from anybody. I know my daughter paints. I know a couple painters, and they would say that a painting could take them years to make. But the skill set around it is a different skill set, technical versus art. And the digital artist has to have both, right? The technical skill set and the artist. So, and I think historically we have not valued it very much. And I feel like the tide is changing on that. That businesses are starting to appreciate artwork and storytelling a lot more than they used to. Because you're right. I think most people go to Fiverr to get their logo. Like, this is going to be the one thing that's going to represent my company more than anything else. I'm going to put it out in front of everybody, and my expectation is to pay $5 to $30 for it. It's ridiculous. So it's a tough gig. And then so you're like, screw this. Me and my wife, we're going to start a CrossFit gym.
No.
So tell us how that goes.
So my wife was working, she was working at Costco, and I was working at a nonprofit doing graphic design, and we both were out of shape, and we started doing CrossFit. And then I kind of told the story of how we saw that, hey, there's a need for a different kind of gym. And so okay, well, we want to do that someday. But who knows when, and like the startup costs, we didn't have the money for, we were just thinking, how are we going to find a space? And so, and I ended up coaching at the gym that we were at. So I was kind of learning the ropes on how to coach people better. And then it's just like a sharing a space with another gym here in town kind of just landed in my lap, and we're like, okay, but we don't have any clients. And so the gym that I was at coaching, they said, hey, go ahead, and if you're willing to go ahead and do that, go. We don't want to coach 5 a.m. anymore. I don't want to get up and do that. So take those clients with you. So we took those clients with us. We shared about 500 square feet of this other gym, and we did that. But I did classes early in the morning. Then my lunch break from my graphic design job, I'd run over and do a noon class. And then after work, I'd go back to the gym and do an afternoon class. So I was doing both for probably three years. And that was rough. In there,
right.
We decided that my wife, she was hating her job. And so she quit. And so we were as we were making more money, we decided that we could go down to we make a lot of sacrifices along the way to make it work, but she quit her job. And so, we did the one income thing for a while, and she put more effort into the business. So
do you think that this is just a crime of passion that you kept chugging towards this and you loved it so much that it ended up happening? Or did you have some kind of intention on making this transition over those 3 years where you were doing both?
I wanted it to happen as soon as possible. A couple of years into the business, I realized that maybe, I don't even remember. Yeah, it's probably been a couple of years in. I was just like, man, everything I'm doing is not getting me to where I need to go. But I think it should be working. And I had to swallow a big pill of humility, and I hired a business coach, which now I look back on what was my problem? I should have done this earlier. So got some mentorship, and then I started moving the needle a little bit more and more. And it's been a very slow growth, but I love doing it. I love the challenge of entrepreneurship, just the everyday solving new problems, and doing that. So I wish I could say that, I had a set plan. I'm going to be out of this graphic design gig in so many years. But I didn't have, I wanted to be able to have that, but I wasn't seeing the growth in the gym consistent enough to actually make that sort of plan. So I just kind of played it by ear.
Right. So you hired a business coach, and I totally understand where you're at. I get it. And a lot of business coaches, you're like, well, you've never ran my kind of business before. How are you going to coach me? And a lot of coaches are young, right? They don't have that. So what is it? I struggle with this all the time, right? Because I'm also a coach, and I know why people come to me for some things, and other things I'm like, really? Why are you coming to me for that? It seems like you should have that in your wheelhouse already. But I'm not typically a business coach. I do some mentorship, but not a whole lot. What is it you think makes a great coach, either in the gym or in business?
I think being a great coach requires you to care more about the outcomes for whoever you're coaching rather than for how it makes you look, or what you can kind of put on your, hey, I help these people achieve this. We really have to kind of be humble and put the other people in front of you, and then work your butt off to make sure that they reach those goals.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I totally agree. It's really weird place for a coach. So entrepreneurs and athletes both are generally highly competitive, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're in this highly competitive mindset for a very long time, it's almost hard to become a coach. So, but whenever you make that transition and you realize that it's now hard for me to be competitive because I want you to win more than I want me to win, right? So it's a different mindset, and humbleness is a huge part of that, right? And I think humbleness and mindset, all those things. And you had some experience of gaining some humbleness. Can you tell us a little bit more, a deeper dive into that humbling experience? Or, when you got the coach, what were some of the key things that they helped you overcome to really get your business into a growth pattern again?
So just being like, as a person that is like, I'm very strategic minded. I've had a background in design, but worked with marketing teams and stuff. Like, I've been around this stuff, and I was helping my design clients like with their business and have them get more recognition and stuff. And so I felt like I really I knew all that stuff, and I knew what it took, but a lot of my education and stuff was working with really kind of like, they teach you in school for design, like a lot of stuff like established brands. They use established businesses that are pretty big as examples. And just like the nature of a local mom and pop is totally different than Nike or Apple. Right. So working with the business mentor, like I had to admit that, man, whatever I'm doing just isn't working. And I don't know I don't actually know what I'm doing. And so one of the first things they had me do was like define kind of what my perfect day was. And I hadn't really thought about like looking beyond being successful in the business and like, what do I want my day to look like? What do I want my life to look like? And so then it's like, oh, I'm going to have to make a whole lot more changes to our business. So since that time happened, like we've increased our rates several times because like we were charging $65 a person, and like there was no way I was going to make enough money to like put food on my table. I wouldn't be able to do it as a full-time job. We would have to have like 700 members, and the managing that is like, you get to a certain point and then it's like, it's going to cost more it becomes just, you just lose. So some of that was just being, okay, I'm going to have to ask these people for more money, and potentially I'm going to have to lose some members, and I don't like it. All of that was like, and I'm just here to help these people. But if I'm not in business, I can't help them. So there's a lot of mindset stuff I had to kind of work through with the coach, with my mentor. And then it's like, then we kind of dug into operations and like, hey, every time you do something, write it down, build a playbook. This is how you do it. And so that it can be like systematically reproduced, so that at some point I can work my way out of doing lower value jobs to being able to do higher value things and pass off the lower value things to other staff members. So.
Absolutely. I get the question all the time, how do I scale my business? And it's a simple answer. scale in your head, just make, how do I scale my business? Repeatable process.
Yep.
That's it, right? If you do not have a repeatable process, you are not going to scale that business because it requires you or very specific people to do. That's why one-on-one personal training is a great revenue source for gyms, but it should not be your holy grail, right? It's additional revenue for you because it's costly to have those PT trainers on staff full time, and it's one-on-one. You're selling time for money. Anytime you're selling time for money, you have a ceiling, right? Yeah. And it's a pretty low ceiling. There's 1,440 minutes in a day that you're allowed to sell, right? Of yourself. And then now you can get other resources, other people to do those things, but your margins go away now when you do that. So it's a tough game. You're in a highly competitive marketplace with, how many gyms are within a 5-mile radius of you?
Oh, good grief.
30, 40? Yeah. I mean, it's a lot, right? So, you have to do stuff to keep differentiating yourself. I think what you said earlier about you've been writing blog posts 1 a week for 7 years is, on the backside of it, I think those are, I like to say the phrase, I'm a 20-year overnight success, right? And, those 7 years of work, that grind that you did is, most likely paying dividends now still, right? Because it shows longevity. It shows you care about your members. It shows that you know your industry. It checks a whole lot of boxes for you. So anytime that you can create content for your desired user or your desired outcome for your business, it's phenomenal stuff. Do it as much as possible. Do it at breakneck speeds if you're capable. But it's important stuff, and it will help your business. Like, so many companies or so many people I talk to, like, oh, well, I was told to write a blog, so I did, and it didn't do anything for my business. I'm like, okay, well, let's see it. And there's like 3 posts, right? Well, that's not going to work, right? That's just not. No. You gotta get it up, and you gotta keep going. You just gotta keep chugging along and making changes and reiterating everything that you do, and eventually it'll hit. Say it again.
I think it's Seth Godin that's always like, you just have to ship. Just
let's keep moving. So fantastic. All right. So on that, I love all that stuff that you talk about. Humbleness, finding the business coach, I think is really, really important. I talk to business owners every single day of my life, sometimes up to 10 business owners, sometimes 100 at a time, right? Depending on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Almost all of them say one of their secrets to success, overcoming hurdles, thriving, it doesn't matter what I talk about. Almost all of them get down to community or mentorship or peer review or some external source that's helping them get through those things. And that's either adversity or thriving. So it's really, really important that you understand that you don't know what you don't know. And you got to go outside to get that information. It's really important for business owners to understand that. And I think business coaches just got a bad rap over the years because there's been a lot of shady ones, right? But it is important to have somebody in your corner. You're too close to the problem, most likely, right? And you just can't see it because you're too close to it. If you're finding yourself bumping against the wall or beating your head against the wall, you might be too close to it. Step back if you're good at that, or get somebody in there to give you some kind of consulting and how to navigate those waters.
Sure.
I struggle with it too. I have, more mentors and coaches today than I've ever had in my life. And I just keep, and I don't even ask their permission. I just tell them, hey, I'm using you as a mentor, right? Like, I'm going to call you and ask you questions. And if you answer them, great. If you don't, then you're going to have to tell me to F off and I'll go my separate way. So fantastic. Now, CrossFit's come a long way. How old is CrossFit as a whole? Like, how old is the concept of CrossFit?
I believe some of the early
years?
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s. So 20-year-old brand industry as a whole, you're in it. There's a lot of stuff. And CrossFit as a company licensed the CrossFit name and licensed it to you. It's not a franchise, so you can be different than everybody else. But how do you see technology changing your industry in the future? And that can be CrossFit specific or brick and mortar gyms as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've definitely seen an uptick in wearables for sure. And that's good and bad. Like I love seeing people like, oh, I'm here to work out, but I got to start my work lots before. And I understand, I get it. But on the other side of that, like I see people relying on what their watch tells them that they're recovered or they're not recovered, rather than like paying attention to what their nutrition actually is. So there's
listening to their body.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think that there's a lot of benefits to some of these wearables. I think that there's just in having data, like more data is always good. Sometimes I get a little afeared. Like I've seen those new like those mirrors, like what is it, tonal or whatever. Like it's a thing that you can do at home, and I'm like, man, everyone's gonna go do their thing at home. But then I'm like, no,
they need community.
No, people need coaching.
And they need coaching and they need community. Right, they need that place outside their home. It's important.
Yeah, so it's really easy to, I think, with technology for people to get distracted by the new shiny thing and then kind of forget about the basics of just consistency over time, and trying to move well and eat well is going to pay off so much more than having the new shiny thing. But
so wearables are a huge thing. If you can't measure it, you cannot manage it. Now, in fitness, there's a lot of ways that you can manage it. You can do your body mass index. You can do the in-body scans, all those things. I think the wearables for fitness right now are scary because they're not 100% accurate. And the education on what the VO2 levels are and how long a person should be there are kind of subjective, but they're given to people as very objective things, right? Oh, this is how long you should stay in VO2. And can you explain VO2 to the audience?
So it has to, man, this is not I'm going to try. I'll do my.
It's something about the blood oxygen levels, right? Inside your body.
Blood and your ability to maintain that and hold it in there. Some people just can't give very much. I mean, so you can't perform.
So these watches are giving you this new statistic of VO2, and they're giving it to you in an objective way. Like, a professional athlete can stay in VO2 for 30 seconds or a minute. And then people have the expectation that they should be able to do it. That's how heart attacks happen, right? Yeah. People that shouldn't be there are trying to push themselves there because they've been told that. Those, I think, are dangerous numbers without extreme education. And we find the same thing in technology a lot, right? People use these new phrases and they kind of vaguely throw them around a little bit and they don't mean as much, but these numbers mean a lot, right? So
they do, important. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's always room for coaching. People just don't know they don't know what they don't know, right? We were just talking about that. So
absolutely. So as technology really ramps up, what I'm begging people to do is adopt technology, bring it in, embrace it. It's really cool stuff, but don't put 100% trust into everything you see and everything you read, right? Trust your body, trust what's going on. This is in business and in fitness, right? So if you buy a new tool for your business that's going to measure something, be a little leery about the numbers that it's spitting out to you. Be a little, trust your body, trust your instincts more than you trust that device until it's proven itself for time and time again. Because they are buggy, right? Updates happen, batteries get low, skin contact gets wet and slippy. So, technology is great, but don't blindly trust it.
Yeah, and it's just one data point, right? I mean, maybe on your watch you get 3 or 4 data points, but that is not the entirety of what you are as a human being. And that is you can wake up in the morning and have elevated heart rate due to stress or a poor night's sleep. And so when people are like, man, I want to work out in this heart rate zone, I'm like, your heart rate's already up because you didn't sleep well, you ate poorly, and you have a stressful job. So that heart rate range means nothing to you. Yeah. Let's do something different.
Mine's up because my son was eating cookies last night, and I snagged 5 or 6 of them as I walked by every time. But that's one of my big problems in life. So cookies are fantastic. They're great, right? And he puts peanut butter on them, so they're even better. So fantastic. Clayton, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Do you have any tips, tricks that you would like to leave with the audience?
Oh, man. If I could have people do any one thing in regards to their fitness, it would be to have that long low trajectory to a distant horizon sort of mindset, that the learning to do the act of training every single day has more value than like reaching a certain amount of weight loss, or like, lifting a certain amount of weight, or even like competing in a Spartan race, or whatever those like outcome-based goals are.
Right.
Like setting your goal for just building a habit, and that habit is the goal, and then just have it be part of your life is like, if more people would do that, man, that'd be awesome.
Enjoy the journey more than that destination.
Yep.
It's huge. Now, and I would just, because I really like, to push the envelope, I totally agree with that long trajectory, over a period of time. But I would say just make sure that it's always an uphill, right? And that you're never just okay with towing the line, right? Because I think towing the line is a dangerous place to be. You want to continually progress, continually get better. But at some point, once you're up to 1 or 2 hours a day of physical fitness, unless that's what you're doing for a living, you've kind of hit the peak of where you need to be for human existence.
Yeah, I mean, and
not even human existence, human thriving. You can do nothing and exist, right? Yeah. But to thrive as a human being, you probably need 5 to 10 hours of exercise a week.
That'd be good. Yeah, some people, as they age, maybe the recovery isn't quite as great, and so yeah, it's always, I would say, those are.
Can you walk in the park, right? Just moving your body, getting up and moving around. It's important stuff. People don't do it, and in business people, men and women, they get bunkered down in their daily life, and they just blow that stuff off. It's really important to do, and if you're in business, if you're in business over 40, I think you've figured it out or you're dying. And if you're under 40, please figure it out now, because it's going to hit you. And if you're running a business, it's going to hit you in a very, very negative way if you're not doing something about your health today. And you're going to put yourself and everything you've worked at in jeopardy if you don't get up and start doing something. So, yeah. Clayton, thank you so much for everything you do for your community and the business world. We very much appreciate it. We need more entrepreneurs like you out in the world, and I thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your time today, Ken.
No problem. Thank you. That's it for today's show, folks. If you'd like to contact me directly, 314-370-2871 is my text line number. I'll never try to sell you anything, but you can ask me any question about business or technology, and I will give you an absolutely free, unbiased opinion. That's it for today, folks. Get to work.